Welcome back, and let's hear what Sir Martin has to say on his meeting with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, even if he insists it was not a one-on-one meeting, and on developments in his own company. In India, there is no measurement of time spent on, say, traditional media.
Right.
Newspapers,
well,
certainly.
The data that I show is the Mary Meeker data. She does this wonderful
I saw that
survey,
slide, yes.
which is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Every year is about 120 slides, and I just pick out one slide. But I mean, the answer is that there should be analysis, but time spent, again, just to underline it, there are qualitative surveys about what's happening on old media and new media. You will see very shortly that TAM and IMRB are going to launch a online and offline, internet and TV combined service panel with data, which will monitor the data online and offline. So we're sort of getting stuck into this. So it will use the TAM data, and if TAM comes together with BARC, it will use the TAM and BARC data for TV, and we have our online measurement as well. So we're starting to fuse this data and looking at time spent and looking at the quality of the engagement.
One of the problems in India is, which you well know, is that marketers don't want to pay for measurement, for quality data.
Well,
where does that leave us?
Well, it was interesting that when you say that, but they spent an awful lot of money putting BARC together, and so the honest.
So did the agencies. So did the agencies.
Well,
yes.
Agencies, but the largest proportion of that came from the broadcasters, from the clients, and from the agencies. And you're right, the agencies did. But the broadcasters, the clients, and the agencies got together, and it was a JIC, a Joint Industry Council.
Absolutely.
But that is changing. I mean, I think the reason why these local companies, the Asian power brands, are becoming so powerful is because there is a deeper understanding now of the importance of marketing. India is still under-branded. We're up to 600 million, just under $600 million of revenues here. We have a 45 share or whatever it is here in the Indian market. In China, we're 1.65 billion. We have a 15% market share. China is $10 billion.
I read all of that this morning.
$10 trillion economy. India is 2.5, catching up with the UK. The UK is only at 3.5. So watch out, the UK. Here comes India. But it's the relative size of the economy, and then advertising as a proportion of that GDP. I think companies here, several of the clients that I talk to here, it is quite clear the clever ones understand this, and a lot of them are the very strong local companies that are becoming very powerful regional companies and very powerful multinational companies, and the message is being heard. I mean, you referred to many years ago when you launched Campaign or whatever it was, and one of the first articles, they said Miles wrote that article, and India is still under-branded. There is still a lack of effective measurement, and the growth of retail was the other thing that you mentioned. Those are all changing. All those dynamics are changing, and advertising and marketing will become more powerful and more important. And you've only got to look at the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister understands the power of communications, and the power of new media, and the power of social and new media and search and mobile and video and everything else.
Can you share with us anything about your meeting with Prime Minister Modi in New York?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting meeting. There were a dozen of us. It was arranged by Rupert Murdoch and James Murdoch, and he had the CEOs of major US-based companies which have operations here in India, and some that don't. And we talked about, and some Indian companies. Uday was there from Star, and we talked. We said what we did, and we asked a few questions, and then the Prime Minister responded and laid out his thinking. It wasn't a really highly interactive session, but it would last, I think, for about an hour and a half. It was very valuable, certainly for us, and I hope it was valuable for him. And we laid out our views on the opportunities and also our views on the concerns. For example, I asked the question about digitization, about quality of the mobile networks. I mean, these are all things that, is the government committed to digitization? When would it be implemented fully? Secondly, mobile is wonderful here, but the quality of the networks have to be improved, and we've got a lot of things coming down the pike in terms of 4G.
Right.
And so all these issues asked about bureaucracy.
Right.
Will the bureaucracy change? I mean, one of the criticisms, and I think it is a source of frustration for the government, is that we have the Vodafone situation. Now it's going to be referred, I think, to the Supreme Court. We have the Maggie situation,
absolutely,
which seems to have been caused, at least in part,
by the bureaucracy.
By the bureaucracy, the revenge of the bureaucrats. And then, last but not least, you have as far as I'm concerned, the Nokia, the failure to transfer the factories to Microsoft. So all these things are examples which don't play well for FDI, which don't play well in the investment community, but which I'm sure, without doubt, the Prime Minister is aware of, and which I'm sure that he will deal with in time, because he's trying to build, make in India. I think, digital India, startup India. I think we have to develop create in India.
Sure.
Because whilst it is true that India is seen as being a service economy and therefore has to be seen as a manufacturing base as well, China's the reverse. It was seen as a manufacturing. Now it's and in fact, interestingly, in China last year, for the first time, the service economy outdistanced the manufacturing. Right. It was bigger than the manufacturing economy. But I do think there's a role, when you look at the advertising industry or communications industry, the creativity is very strong. I was reviewing the work with my colleagues this morning, and it makes you very proud to see the work that our people are doing online and offline.
Absolutely. And
in the forefront of digital, and you see the same thing in our media business, Group M, etc. It's really powerful stuff, and we have a leadership position. I mean, without doubt, we have a leadership position in that. So, but it's about creating in India as well as making in India, and so I think there's another element to this which is very important.
Right. And finally, the news that Geometry Global and Encompass have come together.
Yes.
What does it mean for the marketer, not for you?
Well, there's a big opportunity for manufacturers. I mean, for 20 years or so, it was Walmart and Carrefour and Tesco that dominated the relationship. They controlled the in-store relationship. It was the first moment of truth. The last mile was controlled by the retailer. What we're now seeing is the growth of proximity stores, as opposed to big box, although big box is still important. And proximity stores, 50% of the world lives in cities. It will be 70%. That was the core of the IBM Smarter Planet, Smarter Cities campaign, which Ogilvy did. And what we're saying is proximity and e-commerce are going to be the key drivers. And it's the opportunity for the first time for many years for the manufacturer to appeal over the heads of wholesale and retail directly to your eyes consumers, which, after all, when James Walter Thompson started advertising in America 150 years ago, that was the purpose of advertising.
Absolutely.
To go over the heads of retail direct and establish a direct relationship. So we can do that again. The interesting thing is that will Walmart, Tesco, Carrefour be displaced by Amazon, right, Alibaba, Flipkart, Snapdeal? That's the big interesting thing. So there will be another battleground between manufacture and retail. People don't like to talk about this, but there's a tension there. And what Encompass and Geometry are about coming together, forming the largest experiential shopper in-store operation here in India, they're about that. They're trying to sort of attack that sweet spot. And in-store, the growth of what we call shopper, or experiential, or in-store, has been phenomenal. We've got clients in North America who are turning over the whole of their in-store shopper operation to us, and so it's a very, very big and important area, not just because of big box retailing, but because of this growth of proximity and e-commerce, and it's all coming together. And one final point on it, the amount of money that our clients spend on discounts, discounting gross sales to net, is often greater than the amount of money they spend above the line or below the line.
I'm willing to pay you.
Well, it's not a question about paying us. I mean, it's just a misallocation of it.
Sure.
You don't win by cutting prices, right? You win by building brands for the long term. And cutting prices might increase short-term sales, but in the long term, it just creates commodities. Right. We're interested in earning the right to develop and build premium brands.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Sir Martin.
Thank you, Anant.
Thank you so much. Always happy to talk to you.
Good to see you.
That's all we have in this 30 minutes. It's actually 23 minutes, but we call it 30 minutes because that's how long the program is. Thank you for watching.